Hello everyone, I'm T-Junkie, and this is going to be a quick tutorial about graphics options. I've seen quite a lot that there's just not enough tutorials on graphics options. And with Unity 5 you could download little plugins from the asset store that make your effects on the screen look better. Similar to how Unreal Engine does it. You have like motion blur and all that sort of stuff. It's a free asset released by Unity. It's called let's see if it loads. Oh, it's been really slow. There we go. Here we go. It's Unity Essentials by Unity Technologies. It's free. It's the post-processing like effects list. You have quite a lot. If you just download this and import it into your project, you'll be able to do this straight away. I'll go back to my scene and show you. See, on my main camera, I've attached, with this download you need to do this. After you've imported it all, you can click on your camera, you can add a component, and you add a post-processing behavior, like I have here. And it asks you for a profile. The way to create a profile is you can right click in here, click create, and then do post-processing profile right here. And once you've created one, I'll open my one up right here. You rename it, and you'll be given all of these. You can add fog, anti-aliasing, and when you click on them they expand. And you've got lots and lots of options. But not many people that I've seen online know how to create a options menu that allow you to edit this in runtime in your game. Like enable and disable motion blur, because you should have already set up your settings in here. So when you enable it and disable it, you can show it. Now if I click play, if I click on settings, you see here I've got field of view, which you can see in the background that's working. But then you've got your graphics quality. This is the standard thing I've seen lots of people do, is they put the graphics quality in and have the standard 5 options, which I've done a tutorial on how to do that before, and as well as the field of view, which I'll be going through again. But this is really simple. I mean, you can see it in the background if you don't have like a 2D background like I do at the moment, but you can see it working. Now you've got anti-aliasing here. See, these options here are not much what people put in. See, I've got anti-aliasing. You can turn it off. You can have 2, 4, 8 times. You can have triple buffering, anisotropic filtering, V-sync, shadows, level of detail, ambient occlusion, color grading, and motion blur. Now these 3 here are directly linked to the post-processing behavior, which I have created, clicked on my camera, and then dragged it onto my camera. So those options, which I'll quickly show you again, are controlled from here, and that gives the players more options to choose from. It's very rare seeing anybody with the tutorials like this, so I am going to do this because this is some information that people really need to know. Also, what I've done is I've created 3 small render distances. In games, usually render distance is shown by your graphics quality. If you have it low, then objects don't render so far away, and you might have in like open world games, you'll have a lot of like grass render distance and that sort of stuff. And this is basically the same principle, but really simplified. You can do a very detailed version of this, but this is just very simplified, but using the same method you can make it more vast. But at the moment I've just got 3 settings: small, medium, and large. You can shrink these down or drag them up. At default I have them 20 meters, 75 meters, and 150 meters. And I'll show you what this does in a minute when I go back into show them play the game. And if I click back and actually, if I just play here, does this work straight away, or do I have to fiddle with it? Oh, it is working, but the lighting isn't working properly. No, I'll quit that off and change scene. Game scene, there we go. So now, in here, you can see, well, my building game obviously, but you can see that if I can get over here, a decent one actually this should show the distance, really. If I get it around here, I can show you my graphics options working. Now if I click escape and click options, you have my graphics options here, just like before, except in gameplay I now have this screenshot mode, but it's not important. Now in each of these objects has a tag, and each of the objects in the hierarchy of the master object also has tags. I'll show you what that means. Like I said, field of view works. If I go into here now and I change this down to low, you can obviously see the graphics change. That's just the standard way, but you can turn anti-aliasing off, and you just seen, if you look around here on this part climbing frame, you see it's all jaggy, and if I turn it on to 2 times, 4 times and 8 times, it gets sharper. Anisotropic filtering you can turn off and on. VSync you can turn on, that limits your FPS to 60. Shadows, you can hide shadows. As you can see, if you look at the shadows here, you can see they've got a lot more blocky. We can click soft, which puts the edges of the shadows a bit more soft. Level of detail, low or high, that's basically at a distance how detailed something is the further you get away from it. Ambient occlusion, if I turn that off, you'll be able to see straight away. You see around the edges of the buildings. If I turn it back on, you can see they get a bit darker, and that adds a little bit of a shadow around all the edges. It's really good for like really detailed objects. It makes them more defined. Color grading, if I turn it off, everything gets really bright and not color corrected at all. If I turn it on, you see everything's got color corrected. You can play with these options to tweak them to the way you want. I'll show you how to do that soon. Motion blur, if I turn that on and click apply, I go back into my game and I'll move, you can see the motion blur happening. Now if I turn it back off and I click apply, it's not there anymore. It just looks all, your eyes can't keep up with that. There's also a few other options. Now, small render distance, the lowest you can get is 20. I'll have to demonstrate that when flying around, which I'll do now. See, if I fly around and I get further away from these objects over there, you see them all disappearing and reappearing. That's because the render distance for them is set at 75 meters. And as you can see, they're all disappearing and come back. Now if I go back into my options, pay special attention to this dock over here. If I increase the medium objects render distance to 150 or 160, let's do that, and click apply, they all appear again. So there is a way of doing this. If I go down to 20 on all of these and click apply, everything just disappears. Your FPS goes amazing, but everything just disappears. And when you fly around and go back, improves FPS, but kind of looks a bit crazy. But I've gave the player the option to play around this themselves. They can do whatever. Now what I'll do is I will show you how to do these settings. Now in your post-processing behavior, in my color grading, you can tweak all of the colors and how sharp and how everything is. Just like if you want to have fog in the level as well. I'll show you the same principle you'll need to put that in in your options menu. But I'll tweak all these settings and get the perfect balance that you like. If you have a completed scene, which I highly recommend you do, if you've created a scene with quite a lot of objects in it, then add this post-processing to it. That way you can definitely see all of the options working, and you can tweak them to make everything look sharper, more cartoony. It's entirely up to you. There are some tutorials on how to, like people playing around with this, so I'm not going to get into it in this tutorial, but you will be able to see like some people playing around with this, and you will understand more what each option does. Oh, this eye adaptation. This is basically, if you enable this and bloom, basically what happens is if you look directly at a light source, your eyes will go, it will be really bright to begin with, then you'll see it slowly go darker as this eye adaptation actually like appears. This is most notable in like if you play Unreal games, like you run into, or you play Counter-Strike, say, and you run out of tunnels in dust, and you back in Source days I think it was, and you run out of the tunnels and how bright it was and it got slowly darker. That's basically what adaptation is. You can play around with the settings and how dark it gets and the exposure and everything, but these are a lot of settings. They're all free, and I highly recommend people. I highly recommend you like check this out and learn more about how to use it. If more people want me to actually go through each of them and show you like tweaking of each and what each actually specifically does, I will happily do another video about that. Now what I've done is, I've got quite a lot of scripts. Now what I've done is, in my main menu, I'm not going to cover positioning of the options too much, but I will show you what I've done. Now in here I have quite a lot I've got quite a lot of arrays. See, these are array of strings, they're just names, off and on, off and on. You can name these whatever you want. I've just basically named them something that makes sense to me when I look at it straight away. See, I've got anti-aliasing here, so I've got AA presets. These are the presets that I will have to off, 2, 4 and 8 times. I think you can only go up in you can only step up in intervals of 2. You can't do like 2 or 3, 4, 5, 6. You can only go 2, 4 or 8. It doesn't, it like doubles each. Oh, I've got a really dry mouth. Triple buffering, same here, I've got it off and on. I'll just create these settings. The reason why these IDs are empty at the moment is because the default is 0 and 0 on this is off and 1 will be on. So these presets here, very low, low, medium, high, ultra. I've set these presets myself. I've named them what I want. I can change this to super duper amazing if I want, but it's not the point. And anisotropic filtering, off and on. VSync, off and on. Shadows, soft and hard. Level of detail ID, and level of details low, high, etc, etc. If you could pause the video here and complete all these yourself if you want. Pay special attention to the public camera, because this you're going to need for your field of view. You're also going to need this to get references to some of these, and to have, say, motion blur and color grading and ambient occlusion, which uses the post-processing behaviors. You need to include a using Unity Engine.postprocessing in the top. This will allow you to get access to the back end and actually edit this yourself. Below that I've also got game volume, field of view, sensitivity. The reason I've got sensitivity and I've got mouse X and mouse Y is because Unity, you can choose mouse X and mouse Y sensitivities differently. So you can have mouse X sensitivity is 5 and Y is 6 if you really want. But in this example you'll just see me have these two exactly the same, so there is no like weird like speed variance. As you can see here as well, I've got my little floats here for render distances. I've got 40, 80 and 150. I've also got camera speed. You don't need to do this yourself. I do have an option for camera speed, but this is handy if you're creating like a free flying camera. You can have a camera speed and you can edit the camera speed using this the options menu. I don't actually need that, I don't actually think I need that. Right. These are just some, I'll show you how to create little buttons, like I'll show you here. So in here I've got, in my gameplay I can choose collection schedule. That's basically when I get paid. You can choose it monthly or weekly. And this is basically what these buttons are now that I'm going to be showing you as well. It's just like camera speed I've got here. And sensitivity of your mouse. It's all one. You got the values at the top there. Also audio, mine's 100% at the moment. And this stuff here you can just ignore. So if you want to pause the video now and write all this code down, and then we'll continue. Right, let's go. Now in my start, all of these options here, I might add, are saved in the player prefs. This is like Unity. It's in like the registry. This is all saved. And to save something in the registry, this is just a check at the moment. See, this is if you've got the key sensitivity in the registry in your player prefs, the sensitivity equals the float sensitivity. And then you see that if it doesn't have that, then the sensitivity has a default value. It's good to have else statements, that way you never have an option that's blank. They've got the same for camera speed. Field of view, Unity default field of view is 60 I believe, so that's why it's 60. If you don't have the key, it defaults it to normal. And game volume, something to note here, the volume of the game goes from 0 to 1. So if you want to have 100% volume, that's 1, and if you want to have no volume at all, that's 0. And everything in between, like 0.1, 0.2, that's like 0.1 is like 10%, 0.2 is 20%, etc. So with a bit of like coding wizardry, you will see this displayed as a full integer, which I have here. It's a full integer. Even though in my coding it's 0.1, it displays as 100 and goes down in full numbers. And we'll get onto that in a second. So in my start function I've got this. SRD is small render distance, medium render distance and large render distance. I did put defaults to this, like 20, 60 and 150. They are wrong, because that's what they should be, but that's my mistake. And you get down here to graphics quality level. Now these are each of the levels that I have custom put in. So you have, like this here is the medium, low, very low, medium, high and ultra. See, quality settings is Unity's default like graphics thing, I guess you can put it. So 1 is very low, 2 is low, 3 is medium, 4 is high and 5 is ultra, etc, etc. Now the one thing you need to put in is I've saved an integer for these, and the reason being is because if we go back up here, I have an ID. Now this ID, see, that would be 0 here, 1, 2, 3 and 4, and basically what I do is I use this saved ID that I'll have here. I have this saved ID here, and this number, if it says number 2, then I know it's a medium. So my graphics settings when I've saved will be medium, and then when I reload the game again and reload my graphics options, it will show that medium is selected and the graphics will be medium. I hope that makes a bit of sense, but that's exactly the same as I've done it for here. So anti-aliasing 0, 1, 2, 3, last settings 3, 0 and 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, because it's done by integers, which is this ID here. It always starts off as 0, so your first option here will always be 0. Something to remember when you're doing this. So you see here 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It says if the integer in graphics quality level is equal to 4, it sets the quality level at the highest, because it should be ultra. And if it doesn't have any graphics qualities, it defaults to low. That way if you load up the game on a potato computer, you'll be able to play it straight away. You can fiddle around the graphics. If you set it to everything's on and ultra and everything, then you're going to have a bad day even just trying to load the game, I think. So I always go for the lowest settings that I can. That way everybody can at least get to the option settings and try and do it. So you've got the AA level here, similar principle. Quality settings, anti-aliasing is 0, anti-aliasing 2, 4 and 8. This is 2 times, 4 times and 8 times. There is no 6 times, 1 or 3 or 5 times or 7. It goes up in doubles, so 2, 4 and 8. And the same before, it starts off at 0, so 0 is anti-aliasing is 0, 1 is anti-aliasing 2, 2 is anti-aliasing 4 and 3 is anti-aliasing 8. Triple buffering, 0 and 1, that's off, and that's on. It's triple buffering, max queued frames equals 3, so that's triple buffering. And if you don't have it, your ID equals 0, I've defaulted this ID to 0, and I've done the max queued frames equals 0. So you have no anti-aliasing. This is setting the ID, which is here, to 0, so it shows up as empty. This here is more important when you go into the options, because if you set that to, if you say if it doesn't have quality settings, if it doesn't have any of these, right, it doesn't have triple buffering level, or it doesn't have AA level or anything like that, and you set down here that you don't have an AA level, if you don't have it, your anti-aliasing is 0. But you set this to 3, even though the anti-aliasing is on 0, the option is going to highlight at 8. So people are going to look at that and they're going to be confused. So that's why that's zeroed out as well as that. Because the last thing you want is say, as a hypothetical situation, I have no say anti-aliasing at all. Apparently on here my anti-aliasing is off in my game, but I come into my options here, it shows that I've got it on 8 times. That's what would happen if they didn't have any quality settings. It could be fixed by you changing it and then hit and apply, and then when you load in the game again it's going to show us 2, but to begin with, if it's got no anti-aliasing, you need to show off. Some of these options automatically edit. See, these quality settings, when you edit them in the editor, when you click on the button, it automatically applies them. So these quality settings, this one here, like all of them really, when you click on them, they always automatically apply. But when you click the apply button, that's when you save the information. And for triple buffering, it's the same. Anisotropic filtering. And now anisotropic filtering is quite different. So you got the quality settings anisotropic filtering, but you need it to equal to anisotropic filtering disable. And then when it's on, you want to choose that to force enable. So it forces it on regardless. And this is a different option. Just like vsync quality settings vsync count equals 0, vsync count equals 1. See, you can tell the standard Unity quality settings because you can just call this quality settings class and it will just work straight away. So shadow level is the same as anisotropic filtering. When you do is shadow projection equals, and you put close fit, which is hard, and soft is close fit is soft, so it tries getting, it softens it. Stable fit is the hard shadows. Stable fit takes less graphics power to run. You can also do another section here and say I want to say that's dot, and you can just get rid of shadows completely. That's close fit, isn't it? You can get rid of shadows completely, but I recommend just changing the graphics settings for that, to be fair. Here you go. Level of detail is quality settings dot LOD level equals 1 equals 0. So 1 is on. LOD levels, if you've never worked with them before, Unity uses a LOD system that can be made up of 3 to 5 objects with varying quality. So I've got a house. I'll make 5 different versions of this house. One that is amazingly detailed, which is going to be my close-up house when you're really close to it. And as I get further away, the model changes in a split second, so I won't be able to notice the change, but it gets less and less detailed. But because you're further away, it will still look the same detail as if you're up close. A lot of games do this. You can turn it off if you want, so everything is the same quality and it doesn't use a LOD system. It's entirely your preference, really. If you don't need a LOD system in your game, you can turn it off yourself without an option. But it's entirely up to you. I believe in player choice, so I've put it in there. Here we go. Now this is where it gets different, because now these graphics options are to do with the post-processing behaviors. So as always, I set the ambient occlusion ID to equal the ID that I've got saved, if I have it. And this chooses if it's 0, I use game object, which is the game object this script is attached to. .get component, and you get the component post-processing behavior, and then you use dot profile dot, and then this is where you start editing the different values. So they're quite well named, if I'm honest with you. You will get, see, they're all color grading, ambient occlusion, motion blur, see, and this word here you could change. I think I saw anti-aliasing. So if I type in anti-aliasing, that's the word. So so you can edit all these options straight through a script if you do it correctly like this. And each of these here, the name will be exactly the same name as if you click on here. See, fog, anti-aliasing, same name as this stuff, and you can turn them on and off. It's entirely up to you. At the moment, this start function basically is trying to get my options. So all of this, if I scroll all the way up, all of this is getting the options that I have saved from editing previously. If I don't have any options, which is why I've got these else statements everywhere, if this is my first game and I've not completed any, I've not like edited my options at all, I want to have some default settings so the game obviously has some sort of graphic fidelity, basic standard graphic settings all done. Like every game has some basic graphic settings already input for you that you could just tweak, and this is basically the same. So your sensitivity you set as 2, so it's a nice sensitivity to begin with, and my camera speed of course is 5. Field of view, I set that to the default field of view because I believe that's default field of view. You can click the main camera, field of view 60, yeah, so it is the default. It's the game volume as well. If it's 1, 20, 60, 150, so it's best to put a default in there. That way the options do have a default option to fall back on if you do not have a save file with all this in anyway. Now what I'll do actually, so everybody can write this down, is I'm going to pan through this quite slowly, and that way if you can pause it and then write everything yourself. Now we're going to continue. See, I've just got some GUI constructors in here, basically to show the options when I click on options. It's just a basic window. Let's get out of the options window. Here we go. Now, you want to see here that in the graphics quality, I've got the title for graphics quality. And then what I do on here, to create the toolbar, you put the ID that it is. See, I have a graphics presets ID, and it equals a GUI.toolbar, and the position of your toolbar, and the length of your toolbar. The more buttons you have, you might want to have bigger options, like bigger number here. Like I've got 5 options, I believe it is, for these graphics presets. So if I want the buttons a decent size each, then you've got to have quite a large number here. And then the height of the buttons. And if you have a custom GUI skin, that's where you put it in here as well. And then what you want to do is, after you've put in the ID, you do some checks. Say if the graphics ID is 0, the quality settings equal what quality level you want. So 0 for me is 1. 1 is 2, 2 is 3, 3 is 4, 4 is 5. It's the same sort of, this sort of stuff here is almost exactly the same as up here, the graphics quality settings. So if this is basically saying if the player prefs equals 0, then the quality settings level is 1. It's basically the same thing, except for I'm not trying to get the information from a save file. I'm getting the information from the button that's been pushed. So if I go back down here, so because this will open up a string of 5 buttons. This is what the ID is. So the ID, which you put in here, the ID equals a GUI toolbar with the distance here, the height. This is the ID that you pass in, so which is exactly the same as the ID here, and then the names that you need to put in. So each of these names, like I've shown you before, if I scroll up to here, you have my ID here, but then you also have the names here. So I've got the names there. So the IDs and the names now are tied together. Where are you? Where was I? I was here. And anti-aliasing is the same exact thing. Because it's a toolbar, I'll put the anti-aliasing ID equals GUI toolbar, its position, and then anti-aliasing ID, and then the AA presets that I have. Of course I have, which are like, I believe it's off 2 times, 4 times, and 8 times. So that's the names. You won't see the names here, but that's the names these will be. So I've got anti-aliasing ID as 0, 1, 2, and 3, and change accordingly. And this is basically exactly the same thing for every single last one of them. Triple buffering ID is 0, rescue frames is 1. Anti-stropic filtering, and same here, anti-stropic filtering dot disable and force enable. I'm going by these one by one, so you can pause the video at any time and then write this all in yourself. I will show you how to get the rendering distances to work. After this. So here's your VSync, your shadows, and your LOD. Ambient occlusion, which is using the game object to get component post-processor behavior. You need to have this behavior on your camera, otherwise when you try and call it, when this options menu appears and you try and call this, you're going to get a big error. So you need to make sure that before these settings are in, and to test them out, you need the post-processing behavior script attached to your main camera with a behavior component in there. See, main camera, post-processing behavior, and you need the post-processing profile in there, because if you don't have this, like if I tick this now and I click play, you're going to give me an error. And if I click options, I didn't get an error. It should have gave me an error. It's probably turned it straight back on after I've turned this off, because I have it. But you need this for the options to work. So if you have multiple levels, each camera, either on your first person controller, your third person controller, or your main camera in the scene, depending on what game you make, the camera needs this attached to it. So I can't stress that enough because I did try playing on this before to see if I could break it, and the easiest way to break it is to not have this script attached to the camera and a profile in there. Color grading, same as previously, and motion blur. Now this is where we get into the other things. Now you've got the small objects render distance, which I'm using a horizontal slider to do, to tweak it. You have these two numbers here. The 20 is the minimum the slider goes, and 1000 is the maximum the slider goes. So you can see here each of them I can go low of 20 and the max of 1000. This here is the actual number it is at the moment. So this here is exactly the position that it's on. So minimum's 20, that's 1000. Say this is 25 right here. This is the default. This is the position of the slider at the moment. Don't need to worry about this anymore. The small render distance equals a GUI horizontal slider, its position, and you need to put this same as up here really with the whole profiles and stuff. You've got your small render distance is in here, and then your minimum and maximum you want it to go. You can put this to any number you want, but being an integer, you can only go 7 digits. You can't go 8 digits, otherwise it like dies and says you need a long integer for that. And here I have basically cast, because this is a float at the moment, this int symbol, I've put empty brackets because you have like an error, because this is meant to be a text field, a string. This is what a label is. A label is supposed to be a string. If you delete this here, it might not because of this actually, but if you do not have a string variable in here at all, it will have a problem. It say it can't do this because it's supposed to be a string, blah 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 blah. Unless, of course, see, if this variable here was actually a string, that'd bypass it. It wouldn't matter if you had these or not, because this is a string. But because we've got an int in here, if I was to have no string here at all, it would have a fit. So basically what you can do is empty bracket, then you can plus a float. But because it's a float and I want to display it as an integer, I just typecast it as an int. And that's simple. You just put int in like curly brackets, and that typecast is an int. If I get rid of this and then click save, you'll see exactly what happens. It might not work here because this is the wrong script. I think I'm on my main menu script at the moment. I think I'm on my main menu script. Am I on my main menu script? I am, yes. So if I go back onto my main menu, so I could just tweak everything and show you everything. Yes, save. So I could just show you everything. So I could tweak it and show you what's wrong. See, this here is 20, but if I start increasing it, look at that. That's absolutely damn horrible. All these points. But if you just typecast it as an int, it only shows you whole numbers. No decimal places at all. And it's easy enough to do that. And I've done the same with medium render distance. At the moment this won't change anything, but this is just setting you up for a slider. You do this the same way for sensitivity, believe it or not. I just put a plus m on here because I want it to show that this is 20 meters or whatever number this is, meters. Now you can copy this if you want. It's entirely up to you. This stuff here, this details text here, this is a GUI. If you don't have a custom GUI, just don't put this in, just go like that. But anything after this comma here, this comma and anything afterwards here, to this end of the speech mark, you don't need if you don't have the same GUI. Now I've got a button now that's apply. And this apply button is basically setting things. So I have a sound that plays when I push the button. And then you can click. Then you've got playerprefs.setFloat FOV. This creates the key and it includes the value. So you've got comment and then the value as well. So the render distance is here. This render distance here will be whatever this slider is set to here. The same all the way down. Let you just save because you have the name here and then you have the value. So if you have a float, you need to say set float. If you have a whole number, it's an integer. This is just saving the ID, so that way I can come back and choose the ID. Previously at the beginning in the start function, you can see what you can see the ID that we found. Now in options title, in my gameplay options, I have a GUI toggle. It toggles between a ball, so this is the ball that it toggles, so weekly. So if weekly equals false, weekly equals true. So when you click it, it equals true. And if monthly, because I've got two balls, if monthly equals false, yeah, if monthly equals false here, monthly equals true, but weekly equals false. So it toggles between the two. And then you set the key and you delete the key here. You can set it so the apply button here does all this, but I'll just put it in here so it edits straight away. The camera speed here is the same horizontal slider as I've got up here. I've copied basically the same functionality here down here for the camera speed. And the apply button saves the sensitivity as a key, as a float sensitivity, because sensitivity is a float and camera speed is a float as well. And you save the value. And of course audio, exactly the same thing with the slider here. But what I've done is to show the 0 point whatever number as a whole number. I've created a label. I've put plus system.math.round, and then what I've done is game volume in brackets. I've put the game volume, the actual game volume, to the nearest power, which is 2, and then I've times that by 100. What I mean by the nearest power is a float you have a float, if I click here, a float you'll have, say, 0s here and 1s here. If I move to 99, this is the nearest power. Because I've times it by 100, see, 0.1 times by 100 is 1. So it shows up as 1 there. And of course 0.1 and a float would be 1. If I'm doing a float here to show the float, it'd be 1.0 because I've times it by 100. Hopefully this is getting the slight point across, but it's confusing to try and explain. It's easier just to show, I guess, is what I can say. So I'm using system.math.round to take care of most of that. And the value here, which is the value I've got here, times 100 to get the percentage. I'm not a maths wizard, but this here is what you basically do to get a percentage anyway, so computer does the heavy lifting for you. When you click apply, the game volume equals the setting game volume there. This is a lot of explaining. Just read through it, let it process a bit. I just finished writing all this, and then I thought, do you know what, I'll do this video because it can be quite simple, and plus I can explain more, and then you can pause the video and input the information yourself, and you can see it happen. Like this camera speed here, I've put it as an int as well because I want to see a whole number. I don't want to see 1.89523 blah 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 blah. I just want to see what speed it is. You may want to display it as a float, but me personally, I just want the whole number. I don't want no fluff after. Now in your game, I'm going to have to go to my game scene to show this. In the game, I will have an object. See, because mine's a building game, I can show you this way. Look at my resources, and then I click buildings and say I have my car in here. Right, it's a lovely car. Now this car, if I click on it, you see here that its layer is a medium objects render layer. I've created these layers myself. Just myself. And the reason why I've done this is because you can add layers yourself as well. The reason why I've done this is it's layer 8, 9 and 10. You need to remember what layers these are. You will only need to remember it like for the next 5 seconds, but just remember that small is 8, medium is 9 and large is 10. And the reason being is this camera call distances script. I will show you what this entails. But on your car, you have to make sure let's go here. The master object, the parent, is the render layer as well, and underneath the children and the children's children all have the same. You can, however, say because this is really complex, and the further away I get, I don't want to see these door handles or whatever. These door handles here I can click and I can say this is actually a small object, and you can tweak them this way if you really want, or you could just say the whole thing is a medium. I can click medium here and then click change children, yes, and then everything here will be medium, right? And you want to do that to every object you have in your game. You want to set it to small, medium, large. If you have grass, so you could even set furniture in different categories. Like the further away from a furniture object you are, it gets cold basically. So you can have as many of these layers as you want. It really does not matter. So you can have a layer here that says fence, and then you can say nature and foliage and windows and buildings and etc, etc, etc. It doesn't really matter. You just need to make sure all these options here are, you need to remember what layer these all are. Now you need to create the options for it, obviously, but you can have quite a lot. Maybe 31 layers is the max amount of layers you can have, maybe. I don't think you can go further than 31, but I don't think you're going to ever need more than 31, to be fair, if you're smart about it. But now on your main camera, what you also want to do is you want to create a new script. So you can go add components, write a script out. So camera, well, I'll have the script here, but you can type in camera, delete far away, and then you click new script, and then you can choose C#, which is mine script size, and you can create an ad. I don't want that because I've already got a script. If we open up camera call distances, this is really how short this is. See, you have a private float, which is an array with distance. So this will find, and you have the camera. So the camera, if you go into here, is your main camera. So the camera, say if you've got a first person controller, the main camera in that will be the camera here. So the camera that you use to view the world out of and experience your game will be the camera for here. Same for like the field of view and everything else. So what we're going to do is you want to say update camera is false. You can force an update. You can force it to update by ticking this on. I have this basically for testing purposes, but you don't actually need this on. You don't actually need this ball here. Right, what I'm going to do is create a distance. Now 32. The reason why it's a new float and the array is 32 is because I think I might have been silly, but no, it is correct. There is 32 layers. So there's layer 0 to 31. So there's 32 layers, right? There's 32 different layers you can have, which is why this is here to 32. I don't need it to 32. I could probably get away with having it to 10, but or 11, 9. Sorry, new float here is 9. No, 11, because yeah, because I'm on number 10 and it starts at 0, so yeah, I need to get that as 11. I could get away with putting it as 11, but I'll just put it maximum. That way in the future, if I want to expand this, I can without having to mess around with this number here. If I have my key small render distance, this is basically this. I've just used this key here because we're always going to have this key. You could use medium and large because you're always going to have this regardless. But if you've edited it and you have it, distance 8. See this here, layer 8, which I told you to remember earlier, is if you see layer 8 here is my small. Small, medium and large. 8, 9, 10. This here's the layer that you want to cull or get rid of the further away you are. So this here is your maximum, I guess you can call it. This culls everything from the camera within a certain distance away from here. Now in your late update, I've got the same thing here, and I've said distance 8 equals the get float. See, same here, but this is an update. This is basically so I can do options menu, because I've got an options menu that allows me to change these options on the fly. I needed to create a late update because I don't want it to update like every frame, but I want to update every other frame, if that makes sense. See, an update, if I just have this as an update, every frame this will update. That's pointless because I'm going to change this every frame. But a late update is every other frame. So I can give myself a little performance hit if this changes, but it's not going to update every frame. It doesn't need to. I can create a different script under here and then tell the script to call this here when I've changed this, and you can do that. But for my purposes, I've just done this. So the distance, so small render layer here, the distance, which is array number 8, player press for get float, and this is the number, so yeah, it's 20 meters this will be, say. So if it's, that'll be 20 meters away from the camera. I hope this makes sense. This, see, and here cam.layer called distances equals distance. So this will cull everything in here that's greater than the distance here to here from the layer. This is really kind of confusing to explain, but this will basically cull or hide every object with the tag 8 or 9 or 10, which is small, medium and large in my case because I've named them, but this is the ID that the layer uses, within a certain distance that you've saved in your options menu, of course, in your player press, and it will cull everything that's outside of that distance. So mine's 20 meters, so from 0 to 20 it will show the item, and anything above that it will just hide away from the camera view, so it just doesn't render it. Hopefully that explains a lot. Hopefully. Of course, say if you have an audio listener, and I've got my player HUD here, let's go player HUD, and I go to my start. Yeah, I'm on my player HUD here. If you have this script, if you have like a player HUD script, or you can create just an empty script if you want, and you set the audio listener dot volume equals the same volume as you have saved. And the reason why I've saved this game volume here is because when I edit this, I want to show the default. So when I save it out in my main menu, say, and I go into my game, I want my game options menu to display the same settings, the same position of the sliders that I set in my main menu to begin with. So everything makes sense. But this is basically the same stuff as I showed before. But the audio listener dot volume, because I don't need to say game object dot audio listener dot volume because it's attached to a camera anyway. So, but if you had this attached to, say, an object in space, and all the sounds are out there, say you have music, but your music's played from a different game object, then what you want to do is say I have a game object called microphone. So I put microphone equals game object dot game camera, game object dot find game object with tag blah blah blah. Then I say microphone dot get component dot, then I do audio listener dot blah 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 blah. You get the point. So because this script is already attached to my camera, I don't need to. This automatically gets the audio listener attached to the camera in the first place. But if you have a different game object and you want this, and this script is not attached to that game object, but you still want to edit the volume of that object, this is how you do it. The same with the sensitivity. So the sensitivity here, you can say I've set my sensitivity to 2. But somewhere else, where did I put it? There you go. So in my update, I've got my audio listener dot volume equals game volume. This is so when I update it in the audio options, it automatically updates, so I can hear it in gameplay. If I don't put this in the update, that if I do any changes to this audio listener, you won't be able to hear it. So that's why some options that you have in the start function, you need in the update function, so they can be edited and updated straight away. Same with the field of view. When I edit the field of view, I want to see my field of view being edited straight away. And this is the same way. I've got game camera dot field of view equals underscore field of view, which is on this player HUD. This is the variable I have there. Now mouse X value and mouse Y value is input.getAxis, and then the name, so this is mouse space X. You want to times it by the sensitivity you have, and the same with the Y. So they're both exactly the same value as sensitivity at this point. Any other things I've saved that I need to show you? I don't think so. No, there's nothing else in the update, but the stuff that you want updated in runtime, like straight away, like the field of view, like the volume, and like the sensitivity of your mouse, add in the update function. It saves you a headache wondering why this is not updating when you click apply and all this sort of stuff. This is why. It's because you don't have it here. It's not updated. You didn't tell it to update. If you put it in the start function, when you play the game, say this stuff's in my start function, this stuff's in my update function. The difference is that when I click play and I load up my scene, say like I'm doing right now, the start function is fired straight away. So the start function is fired. It's already loaded my settings in, etc. Done. Now the script won't ever go access the start function again, not until I reload the scene again, or reload the script. So you need some things like the field of view to be an update function, so it updates straight away. This is why these options are in here. So if I put a 75 again, and I put that 150, click apply, there we go. So I had to click apply to get this to register straight away, but if this was in the update function, when I would have slid these backwards and forwards, you'd have seen this go in and out, in and out, in and out, with stuff being rendered and not rendered. So it's something to bear in mind, that this can cause, if you put too many functions in your update and you tell it to, because update gets called every frame. The easiest way I can explain this is, my script for my graphics options are not being used at the moment. I go into my options, now the script has been accessed. So everything in the update function for this script is being accessed now. It's being updated every single frame, except for the stuff I don't obviously have in the update function. But, so I can have quite a lot in the update function, like all these graphic settings and everything, but the moment I click back and continue, my options script is now not being used. So everything that's on the update function of my object script in my options script is not even being called, because the script is not even active at this moment in time. But if you're running your game like this, so you can see up here I've got a timer. This is running the update function right now. As you can see, that every second of game time, I've sped it up a bit here, but every second, every frame, you can see the second go up and it calculates how long the delta time is, etc, 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 and it renders here. This is in your update function. I can pause here obviously, and then it pauses the update, but this is still being called in the update function, because the moment I click play, it's updated straight away. Now, when you're creating a game, you need to be very careful of what, because if I have loads of scripts, I have a script on this, I have a script on, say, this house here, and I click details, right? This happiness bar here is in the update function, right? So every time this gets edited, this is automatically updated straight away in the update function. However, if I click X here, the details script is not being accessed anymore. Just like this. So if I click here, the moment I click this X button, the script is being hidden. It's not being used anymore. So the update function for this details script attached to these objects here is not being used. So I can have lots in the update function, like this happiness here, but it's not affecting the performance overall. But if you're playing the game like this, and you're playing a first person game, and you're running around, and you've got health and armor, and you've got ammo down here, and you've got a cursor, and you've got all this stuff running in the background in the update function, it can slow down your computer. So what you need to think about definitely is, what do and don't I need running in the background right now, and what can I have in a different script that's not being accessed at this given time that can improve performance overall. because you need to think about performance to begin with, otherwise you have a long road ahead of you, because your game can run like absolute trash. And you can, if you click starts up here when you're playing the game, you can see how much FPS you're getting. Mine's a solid 80 at the moment, 90 here. If I turn around here, it drops down to 40. Of course, this is in the render and I'm pushing it at the moment and I'm recording, which is why this is so horrible. But if you say you go to your options here and then you turn everything down and low and then click apply, look at my FPS just dropped. My FPS just jumped straight up. I've got an extra 70 FPS just by these rendering options. And I could turn all this stuff off and turn all this off and put it very low, and I've jumped up FPS as well. So this is why options are here. This is why it's important to have options. I'm just trying to think if I've left anything else out now. Camera call, player HUD, loading and saving. No, I've got everything. So hopefully I've managed to open up a few people's eyes. I know this is a very, very long video now, but hopefully you've learned something. Thank you for watching. I will teach you again. See you next time. Goodbye.